Bonjour. Wondering where to start learning French? Today I'm going to give you 5 top tips on how to start your French learning journey today. I'm British Polyglot Alex Rawlings, and today I'll be giving you my most practical tips on learning French. I started learning French at school, but it's one of those languages that's actually surprisingly useful, and I still use it whenever I go to France and also in lots of other countries around the world where people will speak French. Make sure you subscribe below for future French learning videos and we'll get you on that road to fluency. Let's get started. Tip number 1. French is all about the pronunciation. You really need to get your tongue or even your throat around those unique French sounds because that can make the difference between actually saying something in the past or the future. French has got about 13 to 15 vowel sounds. That might sound like a lot, but it's actually a little bit less than what you'll find in standard English. Consonants are a bit easier in French than the vowels, but there are still a couple that you won't find in English, or that you might hear a bit more often than in English. Typical ones would be that French guttural r sound, but also the je sound, which we've got in the word pleasure, but in French you hear it all the time, like in words like bonjour,
Bonjour.
je m'appelle
Claude.
argent, and so on. Tip number 2. Don't worry too much about spelling, at least in the beginning. Unfortunately, French is one of those languages which is written totally differently to how it's pronounced. When you're starting out, that can be really confusing, as what you see written on the page might look nothing like what you think you can hear people saying. When you learn French, you've kind of got 2 separate tasks. You need to learn how to speak it and to understand it, and then you also need to learn how to read it and write it. It's really important that you see these as 2 completely different things, and don't rely too much on speaking or listening to be able to read or to write it, or vice versa. Just remember, spelling rules are really tricky in French, and a lot of French native speakers struggle with them too. Tip number 3. Immerse yourself as much as possible. Watching French TV shows and movies while you're at home, listening to French music and podcasts, these are all the things that are going to make the difference. Maximize the amount of contact you have with the language so that you can make sure you're constantly learning and improving. Tip number 4. Don't be scared of making mistakes. You can't get everything right first time, and learning a language is about trial and error. You'll make lots of errors in the early stages, but that's how you learn. Typically speaking, French speakers are quite proud of their language, and they'll be keen to help you learn to speak it well. The flip side is that you might get some feedback from people when you make mistakes, which you could find a bit off-putting. But just take them the right way and see that as a temporary phase that you'll get out of as soon as you start learning more of the language.
Have a bonne journée. Une bonne journée.
Tip number 5. Focus on the verbs. Like all languages that have come from Latin, verbs, and particularly irregular verbs, are a really big topic in French. You'll do yourself a huge favour by making sure that you learn them well. Focus on learning the different conjugations, so that's verbs that end in er, ir, and re, and make an effort to learn the irregular verbs like faire, aller, and avoir in particular. Speaking of verbs, this is actually what we're going to be talking about in our next video, so make sure you hit that button below and subscribe to Rosetta Stone's YouTube channel so you don't miss our latest language learning videos. Click the link in the description for exclusive offers on all Rosetta Stone courses. À bientôt!